Arsenal signed Jurrien Timber from Ajax for £35 million. This is my reaction to it. Overview. This is an unbelievable signing for Arsenal. I think Arsenal next season will be a major, major force. In this video, I'll break down what I think about the player, obviously where Arsenal are next season, and my initial thoughts of the transfer. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Would really, really appreciate that, of course. Let's just start off with an overview of where Arsenal are. Of course, they came bitterly second last season in the Premier League. And if you had to pinpoint one area, I think there were a couple. But if there was one area of real weakness, it was when, of course, Saliba got injured. And you're thinking, actually, if Saliba stays fit, Arsenal probably go on to win the Premier League. That's how good he was. He was probably the best centre-back based on the amount of minutes he played in the league last season. Obviously, Ruben Diaz and Stones played a lot more football, for example. He was immense. Now, when the drop-off happened, when he got injured, Arsenal were absolutely shocking. Worse playing out from the back, less mobile defensively when they were counter-attacked, and even when sides were kind of in front of their back four, you always felt that there were opportunities, there were more gaps, because of obviously the drop-off of Rob Holding. Now, Rob Holding is a servant to Arsenal. He's played over 100 times for the club, came in for cheap, but he's never going to help you win the Premier League. He's never going to help you win the Champions League. And Timber basically comes in and replaces Rob Holding, who's been linked to a move to Turkey today. He comes in, he's 22 years old. He's great with both feet. He's so quick as a centre-back. He's so quick. He's mobile, nimble, and he's versatile. It's a big, big role, the centre-back role these days. I've just seen City win a treble with centre-backs playing at left-back, right-sided centre-backs playing at left-back. I've seen right-sided centre-backs playing at right-back in midfield. So the centre-back role is becoming more and more fashionable, and straight-up full-backs are not as useful for managers, especially like Arteta and Guardiola, of course. So you look at Jurrien Timber and you think, obviously Arteta knows his squad better than me, forward planning, and if you're an Arsenal fan watching this, let me know if I'm completely wrong. But I see a world where Timber maybe becomes an inverted fullback and Ben White gets shifted back into centre-back. Obviously got a bit more physicality than Timber in terms of his height, a bit more Premier League experience playing at centre-back. Obviously it's a hard role to play at centre-back. Or you could just see Timber and Saliba next season competing with Gabriel for those kind of three centre-back spots, with Ben White on one side and of course Zinchenko, Tierney on the other. I think that's an interesting discussion as well. We have to talk about the makeup of that kind of back four for Arsenal, the two left-backs, two centre-backs. They're all of a crazy good age. They're all so young. They're so, not super young, they're not 19, 18. They're early 20s, which means they can all peak at the right time. And look at City, the likes of Kyle Walker, John Stones, Bernardo Silva, all happened at the same time. They all came to their peak at the same time. Tierney's 26 years old. Obviously, he might be on the move, but he's still at a great age. Great backup, at least, if he does stay. 26, Zinchenko. 23 years old, Kiwior, who I thought was fantastic when he did play at Pirates last season. Gabriel, 25. Saliba, 22. Can't quite believe that. I thought it was the other way around in terms of how they both played. Saliba's got that. I mean, he's got the ceiling that's unbelievable. He's 22. Timber's also 22, of course. And then you got Tomiyasu, who's 24. I thought he was a lot older. And then Ben White is 25 years old. So the actual composition of the back four for Arsenal is versatile. They can all play football. They're all quick. There's no lumbering old school centre-backs like Rob Holding is. So Arsenal actually next season have got a variety of options that are all competing. They're all hitting form at the right time. And it means that I think the big thing for Arsenal is, of course, the injury to Saliba last season was massive. But it had to be Rob Holding or no one else. They couldn't put anyone else at centre-back. Obviously, there were even calls for maybe Xhaka going in at full-back at points last season. That obviously never happened. But that's how desperate they were on the ground for bodies in those positions. So Timber comes in and means if Saliba gets injured, you still have a bit of a meritocracy of Kiwior competing with Timber, competing with Gabriel, competing maybe with Ben White for those two centre-back spots. And that's something that Arteta would have seen with Guardiola at Man City. Of course, it's a luxury to have multiple options. A club like Arsenal absolutely have to have that amount of options and the kind of arsenal, no pun intended, available to Arteta going into what is a crazy season for him. He's managing in the Champions League. He's taken Arsenal back to the Champions League. Now, upon reflection, he's taken a month out from football, a couple of months out. It's great what he's done. It's really good. To get Arsenal back into the Champions League is major. And the fact that they've signed someone that is able to compete with Gabriel and Saliba for those centre-back positions, and then, you know, fulfill the squad in the Champions League as well. He isn't just a backup. This guy will be pushing those lot for the big games in the Champions League. Of course, he played, I think he's played 6 times for Ajax in the Champions League. He obviously played really well for Holland at the World Cup as well. And Jurrien Timber just screams Arsenal to me. He's come out and said that his brother's an Arsenal fan as well, and I think Arsenal fans love when the player that joins the club kind of wants to be there. Sometimes it's blaringly obvious when that isn't the case. I think Jurrien Timber just screams he'll stay there for 5, 6, 7 years, and he could be at the epicenter of everything right about Arsenal moving forward. Arsenal have to make amends for what happened last season. There's no question about it. The drop-off after, of course, Saliba gets injured, but you know, the Southampton game, the Bournemouth game, the Brighton game, West Ham, Liverpool, 5, 6, 7 results. They were shocking Arsenal in those games. I thought how they applied themselves. Now, obviously, Arsenal fans will criticise me and say that they were great. There were great moments. Odegaard last-minute equalisers and stuff like that, and Jorginho against Aston Villa. I get it, but I think Jurrien Timber is the exact right approach. I think it would have been calls from Arsenal for maybe a bit more experience, maybe someone who's 30 years old, 32 years old. But what Arsenal are doing is doubling down on what won them the Premier League for 90% of the time last season. I know it's not actually winning it, but they've doubled down on the weakness of last season. They've added strength. It's a shrewd signing because he was linked to Man United, so they've taken the ability of Man United to sign him. And then they've improved in midfield as well with Declan Rice and Granit Xhaka. Those are the two positions behind Saliba when he got injured that you think if the drop-off's there with Partey, they're struggling, and Declan Rice now will come in and be an absolute force for Arsenal next season. The one remainder for me has to be Arsenal's front line. I don't think Gabby Jesus will ever lead them towards the Premier League title by himself. He might need someone of a similar calibre to himself, or he might need a full-on replacement of him. That's how I see it. It's hard to come by. Osimhen's £150 million. It's crazy numbers. Arsenal can't really afford that. And Eddie Nketiah isn't cut up for it. So Arsenal next season, they've done the right business in centre-back position. Of course, Kyrgios is a kind of semi-new transfer as well. So they've got Kyrgios, Timber, Rice and Havertz in midfield. For me, they need a new striker that can at least compete. Someone young, exciting, powerful, has got a bit more physical presence than Gabby Jesus. And I think if you look at that squad next season, the youth, I mean, Declan Rice coming in as a very young midfielder as well. Jesus is young, Saka's young, Martinelli's young, the keeper's young. Whatever you say, I think Arsenal will be buoyed by what happened last season. And I think older players can be a little bit, you know, by the end of a career, if you haven't won the Champions League, you know, some players you could feel like it's not going to happen again. I think with young players, they're so young, there's a naivety there that they will go on to win. They will get another chance. They will get another chance. And they've got so much time at Arsenal. It's an amazing signing. Timber from Ajax to Arsenal, £35 million. Arsenal will be a major force next season.